Dale, welcome to the Future Melbourne podcast.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for inviting me.
Today's topic, safety and city amenity, which is something that dominated the 2024 City of Melbourne election campaign. So it is an issue that is close to the hearts of many Melburnians and people who are thinking about visiting the city, living in the city, working in the city. Crime data has shown increases in key offence categories in recent times, particularly around theft-related offending. But the response is also evolving, which we'll get into today, Dale, with more visible policing in the city and more investment by the City of Melbourne in safety and outreach. So, Dale, you've spent years policing Melbourne's central city. For those who don't know you, touch on your background and how would you describe your role today?
Thank you, Sean, for the invite, and it's a pleasure to just get a policing perspective on the safety of Melbourne. My role is the local area commander for Melbourne East, and I look after half the CBD, but the Paris end of CBD I like to call it, and also all of Southbank, which takes in all the gardens around Crown Casino down to Fisherman's Bend. Mm-hmm. So fairly important areas, and in the Melbourne East area I look after the MCG, the Tennis Centre, Rod Laver Arena, in Margaret Court area, the sporting precinct, plus a lot of CBD premises in the Melbourne East residents groups, the CBD residents, and also we look after RMIT, or not a lot of schooling precincts as well within the CBD. So I cover a fair bit of the Melbourne CBD and in the kind of looking after people's safety in different facets of the CBD.
And it might sound like a bit of an obvious question for some of the reasons you've just outlined. It's a very busy place, the CBD, but why from a policing perspective is the CBD such a unique policing environment compared to the rest of Victoria?
I think when you step back from a larger perspective view of things, that Melbourne is one of the main cities of Australia, really, it's like Sydney. Everyone is drawn to those two locations, and Melbourne is a growing population of just residents, and I'll probably touch on that. We'll talk off air about where Melbourne has been and where Melbourne is now and where it is going, and that's from a policing perspective, but also from a personal kind of view as well. But everyone comes to Melbourne, and you see all the young people, whether it's right or wrong. A lot of people choose Melbourne as a destination when they're growing up, whether it be in rural Victoria or is to make their way in schooling reasons to come to Melbourne, or in for work reasons to come to Melbourne, and it is growing. And now it's becoming a population to live in the CBD, so it's trendy to live in the CBD. That has not always been the case, and we can touch on that later down the track. But so Melbourne is a wonderful destination, but it's not only that, it is also an international city within our kind of scope of Oceania and in Asia. We're one of the cities that's mentioned in the comments, whether it be Hong Kong, Singapore, Sydney, Melbourne, and it's always mentioned in that kind of realms. And the importance of keeping Melbourne a safe destination to come to is reflected on the people's confidence in coming to school here from overseas, investing in business here from overseas as well. So everyone is drawn to Melbourne at the moment. It seems to be a very popular place, but most of it is on a safe location. Yeah,
it's a great city, there's no doubt about that. And without wanting to politicise it, but obviously in my preamble I mentioned that city safety has become a defining civic issue in Melbourne. How do you see that as a police officer who is front and centre to the response?
As a police officer, it's always number one thing. I know it is in the media now, but it always has been in the media. And whether mayors come and go, premiers come and go, and policing is all kind of that constant kind of blue line that runs through. While I've been in the CBD, is that safety has always been that number one priority for people who live, play, work, visit, study in the CBD. So that has always been the case. It is working how Melbourne is evolving into its city that it is now, and how we do our policing, which is far different from when I was a constable and as a sergeant, and as I now as an inspector and officer in the CBD, is much different. We can touch on, so Melbourne, when I was a constable, was not really open on weekends. Yes. You can nearly shoot a cannonball down Burg Street and hit no one, and I mean no one. because the city's shut.
Yeah.
You could count on one hand how many people who actually lived in the CBD.
Yes.
In the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, pre-postcode 3000.
So and then the trend of the early 90s of someone was going to deck out an old office block and people might live there was a mind-blowing kind of idea.
Yeah.
Why would you want to live in the CBD?
How ironic with today's world.
Correct. And if only you had money invested in that kind of idea back in the early 90s. But at the time, infrastructure wasn't there. And we're talking about your Coles. There was there was shops, but there wasn't that kind of your Coles, Woolies, Safeways that used to be out in that suburbia. So why would you live in the CBD? Because that's not there to support.
Now we've got 40, 50,000 plus residents.
Yeah. Now, look, in the city of Melbourne, we've gone up. It's just that everyone compares with 2019. The population's gone up. This is from council stats. 40 to 50,000 residents.
Yeah, and particularly in the areas that you police too, as you mentioned, CBD, the Collins Street end, albeit, but also Southbank. I mean, Southbank's population has absolutely exploded, hasn't it?
Southbank is one of the fastest growing suburbs in Australia. So and it's one of the highest high residential living places in Australia. So that's a complication in policing it in itself. So. And it has got potential. You've seen the plans for 80,000 more people to be along towards Fisherman's Bend. So you take that into account what the future will be and how we police those things. But the growing pains of Melbourne stepping from only a very short period of time, and trying to replicate what other cities around the world have done for, if not centuries. You look at your Paris, your Londons, even New York. In those ones where Melbourne really has only been a living, working city for at least 30 years.
Yeah.
So we're trying to ram in several hundred years of experience into a very short period, and it's a growing pains. And part of that is safety, part of that is policing, and trying to balance all areas to give a great opportunity to live and work in the CBD.
But it sounds like the city safety is in great hands with all that experience you've just outlined with your years of knowledge. So, I mean, let's get into the operational aspects of policing what is such a diverse and constantly changing environment. I mean, might sound like a very complicated question on the cuff, but I mean, how do you even begin to manage all of that?
Very good managers I have, and fantastic frontline members, and just an early opportunity to really to shout out for the wonderful work done by the men and women of Victoria Police who operate within the city. They're under, and I do this every fortnight. I speak to the new recruits that come out. Like there'd be 20 of them coming out every fortnight, telling them how what a wonderful location to begin their career. Being exposed to public order issues and nightlife issues, and they may go on to areas within the CBD or within the state that doesn't have that, but to start their career and learn from people who do it day in, day out. And the comments I say to the community is what the police who they have in the CBD are first rate, absolutely wonderful members. They do it day in, day out. Their focus is always on the safety of people who live, work, and come to play and visit tourists and all that in the CBD. They're under constant scrutiny. Yes, always.
Yeah.
You can be a constable out in a country town. You can walk down the street and not much scrutiny, but the men and women who work in the CBD, once they walk out, they're under constant camera scrutiny, tourist scrutiny, worker scrutiny in relation to, look, what are the police doing today? And I always tell them that we are a representative, and you may not see police in your local suburb, but we are a representative of what Victoria Police is seen by everyone around the state. So we have to act in a way, in accordance that is of higher level, and really, so when we're delivering it with the best professionalism as we can.
Yeah, and it might be another difficult question to answer because of that constantly evolving environment that we just described. But what does a typical day look like for your teams in the CBD?
It's ever evolving, Sean. Yes. It can be, some days it can be very, very quiet. Other days it is out of control. And that could be due to a lot of reasons, and it could be out of our control what happens. Dictated, and some of it can be we can manage around, like let's say demonstration, we can manage around But emergency incidents, we can't. They just come across us, and then it's up to our members and my managers and supervisors to make sure that we're putting the right structures. We're thinking not only of the incident, but also with the flow-on effect to others. And as I said, we've got a lot of people who attend the CBD, and how we interact with them. It's not just keep our eye on that focus on that incident, but and make my members think about, okay, what is the flow-on effect to the visitor, to the resident, to the worker as well.
So let's move to crime trends. What's actually happening in the CBD? Because as we touched on originally, there has been increases in offences across Victoria, particularly thefts from vehicle, retail theft and car theft, and the CBD has seen a fairly high concentration of some of those crime categories. The role of youth and repeat offending, and the distinction between visible disorder and serious violent crime are among things that have also been trending. So we've seen the headlines about rising crime, Dale, but what are you actually seeing on the ground in the CBD and the inner city?
I can only talk about the CBD, okay. But the serious violent crime is really a very minor incident of crime that happens in the CBD. We reflect on where we were in the early 2000s, late 1990s, where we had a big drug issue. We had more deaths of heroin in the streets of Melbourne than we did road toll. In the early 2000s, we had issues of nightlife crime that was very serious, and to the point where it was on the front page of the paper. Melbourne's out of control. Those issues have been dealt with in a policing matter, but also as a community and a stakeholder engagement. To really make sure that they don't come up again. And really, Melbourne is a safe place for those kind of incidents. You don't see those things anymore, and you don't hear those things on our nightlife and walking around the city. The ones you're talking about, the theft from cars, the theft of motor vehicles or motorbikes, and also we got that youth crime aspect. Yes, we do have some incidents of that happening. Unfortunately, theft from motor car, and this would be. It's not just a policing issue; it's an everyone issue. 70% of things stolen from motor vehicles are on display. So we try to get that message out. Please don't put things on display.
Yeah, they're very difficult to police those issues, aren't they?
Yeah, and opportunistic kind of theft and opportunistic crime it makes it easy when people leave handbags, bags, or phones on display in cars.
Yeah.
So just make that harder for someone to opportunistic. And so getting back to your questions before, that everyone comes to Melbourne. Everyone loves coming to Melbourne. We've got more events happening here. Like over the weekend, we had the Grand Prix just down the road, although not in my patch, but the residue of tourists, 99% of them were living in the CBD.
Yeah.
Or, they were in all the hotels. They were living in the Crown Casino hotels, all the CBD hotels. And so we had only 300 to 400,000 people going to that event. At the same time, we had the football starting with 100,000 people on it. So you're getting a mass amount of people coming through.
Yeah.
So when you equate it for the amount of people coming into the CBD for the crime that's been committed, it is low numbers for the number of people coming through.
So are those the most common types of crime at the moment, those opportunistic crimes?
Correct. Yes, yeah. And look, we focus on that when we work with our stakeholders in relation to, we've got a car park association. We meet with them. How can we do this better? And we're stepping, and business is changing as well. Like people are stepping away from having a manned car park as most people do, and automating a lot of things. When with that comes, I always say there's a balance of yin and yang of anything. You take away from the yin, what happens with the yang bit, and so you automate it. What's the consequences of it, and then you see the consequences sometimes. So we work with those people. So what can we do if you're taking away the man at the front gate checking tickets and you automate it? Okay, what's the balance of stopping people just walking into your car park? And we're working with those associations in relation to fixing up the CBD, and really as I said, the numbers coming in and the results of the crime are very low. But when it looks like it's going up, but the population's gone up, 40,000 people in the last 5 years, we're getting more and more people to these events. The City of Melbourne invests in it, the sporting precinct invests in a lot more, getting people in. It's our job to make sure that the experience of someone coming into the city to partake of those events is not impacted by those kind of crimes.
Of course.
As low as they may be, the impact to individuals or families when they get back to their car is severe.
Of course.
And we understand that.
Yeah. Has the character of offending in the city changed much since COVID, do you think?
Interesting question. Coming out of COVID, and this is only like from a personal, but also from pretty much stats, but Melbourne was on the verge of where was Melbourne going. So I took over in the end of COVID, but I was working in the CBD. There were a lot of places for let and for rent.
Yes.
And the worry from council and from policing, so where was the city of Melbourne going? And a serious question to be asked, because where we're going to be like cities around the world which kind of vacated the CBD, then what would fill the vacuum? You know, would crime fill the vacuum? Would it be just, you know, homeless or, you know, issues happening, and we would leaving vulnerable residents with issues? And where would we go in the next years? Thankfully, a lot of it driven by you know, the restaurant and entertainment industry brought people back into the CBD. Like, that really drove it. And then, you know, people you can only sit at home and have your croissant at home for so long, but then people are missing out on great things that the City of Melbourne provide.
Yeah,
they do. So, and it is a wonderful city when you walk around and what you see, in, you know, whether it be retail or just, you know, coffees, drinks after work, or during the food is amazing. So that's brought people back in, and when you look at it now, it's pretty much, if not equal, above what 2019 was. Yeah. So that period was really getting that policing right in relation to, okay, working out what are we looking at. It really wasn't car theft because no one was driving in at the time. And youth crime was coming. We had youth just coming in who were bored, who hadn't been allowed to leave suburbs, are coming straight into the City of Melbourne, coming in from country and causing a muck. So we concentrated on that in relation to, okay, let's set a safe precedent for the City of Melbourne, that people who want to come back to the city, it's a safe, wonderful place to come back into.
Yeah. And let's get to perception versus reality, which you sort of already hinted at with the numbers before about the sheer numbers of people that come to the city to spend time, come to event, work, live, whatever it may be, and versus that stat of the offending, which is obviously minuscule. So, I mean, it might have answered the question already from a numbers perspective, but there's been a growing narrative that Melbourne feels less safe. How much of that is perception versus reality, do you think?
It's one of those political questions I've got to kind of avoid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, be careful.
But I always say that people always vote with their feet in relation to it. We've had people come to the concerts. The
foot traffic's up.
Foot traffic is amazingly up. Now they come in to see Robbie Williams in Fed Square. They'll come in and see a late night show in the Fed Square. Just the free stuff that City of Melbourne puts on, and we will police to these things as well, and to ensure that the experience, as I said, the experience that people will come and go, geez, I want to do that again. I want to come back in the CBD. And I don't think I raised it before. I think you kind of touched on it, but why people like the CBD? To most Victorians, the CBD, Melbourne CBD, is their second suburb. Everyone's got a vested interest in the city CBD. Whether they live in Balwyn, or they live in Shepparton, or they live in Mildura, or whatever, the Melbourne CBD is their second suburb. They may come down here to watch their favourite team play. They may come to see their favourite opera. They may come to see a band, or they love that particular place to eat at. And they have got a very vested interest in the way the crime is perceived in the CBD, because then that reflects how Victoria is going.
Of course.
Is that right or wrong? I don't think it's not true, but it is. If Melbourne's going bad, it kind of reflects, well, that means Victoria's going bad.
Yeah.
So it's incumbent upon us in Victoria Police in relation, and especially the CBD personnel, to ensure that perception of Melbourne, which reflects onto Victoria, is held at high esteem. It is a safe place. It is continual, because we are playing with over 6 million people who have a vested interest in how Melbourne is perceived.
Yeah. So you've touched on it there already, but how important is confidence and reinsurance as part of policing a place like the CBD?
Oh, massively. You only have to look around the world to where cities where investment has been pulled out because the city's not safe. And as I said at the start, we're a global city. So it's quite easy for money to be pulled out of Melbourne and put into other places, Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, where investment. Why would we invest in a city that's gone backwards or not safe or not perceived to be safe? As I said before, we've got the education sector as well. We've got RMIT, we've got the CAE, we've got in relation to and parts of Melbourne Uni as well. It's a $1 billion industry, and the only reason it's a $1 billion industry is because Melbourne is perceived as a great educational kind of institutions, but it's a safe place to send their kids. So if I was a parent overseas and wanted to send my kid to a great place, but it wasn't a safe city, you'd be dodging at it.
Yeah.
So that's how important.
There's a reason why we're in the top 5 student cities in the world.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's go on some recent news with Operation Harmony. So I think it was either last week or the week before the expansion of this was announced. So I'll let you unpack it obviously in more detail, but I'll run through a couple of the highlights. So it's basically doubling the daily number of officers patrolling the city. It's running for the foreseeable future and includes not just local police but specialist units including public order response team, transit safety division, highway patrol, proactive policing and the mounted branch. Priority issues include antisocial behaviour around Flinders Street Station, Elizabeth Street, which is notorious, retail crime around Burke Street Mall, Melbourne Central, e-scooter and bike safety, thefts from cars in multi-level car parks, which we've touched on, and engagement with people experiencing homelessness to connect them with the support services they need. The first phase, I recall from the press release a couple of weeks ago, resulted in, the original summer push, resulted in 66 arrests, more than 470 penalty notices and nearly 20 support referrals. So those are just the highlights, but can you explain what Operation Harmony is and why Victoria Police has now expanded it at this time?
Look, just going back, we run lots of operations over the years, and we've had like Petrichor, which is really concentrated. You mentioned about Petrichor as an operation really at the start of like the end of COVID, the start of everyone coming back in the CBD. We had a lot of youth. It was targeting youth and the crime, associated crime, and that drove it down. We had a lot of knife crime and now that's pretty much off the agenda at the moment within the CBD because of our enforcement, working with our partners. Not only just us, and it's not just a policing aspect, and I'll get on the Harmony in a second, but it's working with stakeholders. And when I mean stakeholders, I talk to a lot of residential associations. I talk to a lot of the traders associations we have, and we also have our own policing. And that's
part of that neighbourhood policing approach too.
It definitely is. So, and really we have our priority policing locations, which Elizabeth and Flinders Street and Flinders Street Station is one of them, Burke Street Mall, also the top end, the outside the library is another one, and we really work with those stakeholders at close connection, working with them, or say, how can you help us in relation to the issues in the area, whether it be youth issues, theft of motor vehicle or theft from motor vehicle issues. How can we work together? We had one yesterday, which was the Flinders Street one, working with the church, St Paul's, we work with Fed Square, Flinders Street Railway Station. Okay, we've got issues here. There always has been. Now, I'm inheriting what's already been there before.
It's a big dynamic city.
Yeah, it's been here before. There are no silver bullet solutions. It's what have we got at the moment? And we find with the city that what happens in one part of the city may impact another part of the city. So we do an operation somewhere, it may impact. So we found that with Petrichor, we impacted wonderfully at the top end of the city, but it impacted the bottom half of the city. Or we do one of the bottom half of the city and it impacts Southbank. So with Operation Harmony, we've gone not just local, but we've gone, and we've done this before many times with transit police, with the port members as well, with mounted branch in relation to with our uniform members, distinct kind of areas within the CBD, big chunks that they're continually patrolling around, making sure that public order is a priority for us during that time, and but also freeing up our vans to attend appropriate priority one jobs as well.
What did that first phase over the summer operation tell you?
Well, what it told us is that appreciation by our stakeholders and by the people was that we try to do as much public-facing kind of policing as possible. It's not always possible. But, we've got a lot of competing interests. We've got our normal day-to-day business as usual frontline vans that respond to priority fairly significant jobs. So you balance that up with a demonstration. It's hard to have members to always constantly go out there and be that forward-facing. engaging with our people, in the stakeholders and residents and workers. So harmony just helps us make the right. We've put these people aside to do this.
Yeah. Is this about enforcement, visibility, reassurance, or all of the above?
It's a nice bow, all of those.
Yeah, beautiful. And how long do you see this intensified police presence needing to continue? It might be a bit of a how long is a piece of string question.
It is how long a piece of string. And we'll look at it going in towards, we're going into the autumn season, and autumn's fairly busy in Melbourne. Like there's no quiet periods in Melbourne anymore. And to get back to what we're talking about, it's a growing city. It used to be, we've done our 6 months of events. It's the end of March. The Grand Prix is packed up. Pretty much that's it. It's a football, BAU, and football was pretty much the same. Well, now you look at football now, it's a big business, it's even bigger business. We've got festivals happening in Adelaide. These things happen in Melbourne as well. So those things and events are happening through winter. So we have to assess it. Okay, what's coming up through winter? Well, do we reassess what we do?
Yep. Let's get into the weeds now a little bit about the CBD itself from a demographic point of view, because it is multifaceted and very dynamic and diverse, as we've already touched on, and we've also already alluded to some of the hotspots around the CBD. So some of the key locations I think it's worth referencing, obviously, is that Elizabeth Street corridor, which, as I touched on before, is somewhat notorious there with the interface with Flinders Street Station. The retail epicentres around Bourke Street Mall and Melbourne Central. We've also touched on in the last spiel there about e-bike and e-scooter issues, which have been pretty controversial in recent times, haven't they, particularly among residents in the CBD. Southbank, Docklands and Lygon Street, as well as some other high foot traffic areas. And car parks and transport hubs as well are being those highs for opportunistic crimes that we've already touched on as well. So we often hear about these hotspots that I've just alluded to. How do you approach these locations from a policing point of view?
It's a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
And really, some of those hotspots, and I think I just touched on, we have priority policing locations, and it's to work like with those areas, like I say, Bourke Street. So we work a lot with Myers, David Jones, in that area, Emporium, Melbourne Central, at the top end, the library. As I said before, down the bottom end, we work with Fed Square. Okay, what's causing us issues? And what before that happened, it was I would call the van and nothing. It was getting lost, that information, and really the information from those stakeholders is crucial for us in how we do our policing. And you can only see the good benefits. You look at the Bourke Street Mall now. Majority of the time, it's a fairly clean and very, very safe environment. And the way that David Jones and Myers and now Mecca are doing the business there now, they're opening up. The tourists going there are amazing, walking down the Bourke Street Mall.
And they provide passive surveillance in their own right, don't they? Yeah.
So we work with them to ensure that it's attractive to the right people, but not attractive to the wrong people, and they're causing issues out the front of their place or coming through. And days gone by where years people would run through, and they're not happening because we're targeting those kind of people, really with their help as well. So the information intel coming through from our stakeholders is crucial in relation to how we police and who we're targeting. It's a bit more kind of using a scalpel more than just a blunt instrument to trying to work out, okay, where we put our police. We're targeting individuals, yes.
And how do you manage such a broad patch from the CBD itself to Southbank? And I know Docklands and Carl are probably in other jurisdictions, but they sort of feed into that really hiving city activity centre, don't they? They
do, and really we work as a good team in relation to understanding, okay, what issues are happening, whether it's down outside Docklands or if it's happening outside Southern Cross Railway Station. How can we contribute? Well, we're going okay. Can we help and contribute to a bit more policing down that area of the city? Look, it is always a balancing act, and if it's not daily, it is definitely a couple of times a week. I'm looking at stats of where we're going through what the issues and working out how can we work better. It's work smarter.
Yes.
It's not just throwing police at it and without giving names away. I used to get, when I first took over, it was some institutions would say, well, we just need more police here. And I go, well, okay, so but what are you doing?
Yeah.
So why is your business model affecting my safety of the city?
Yeah, because police can't always just show up out of thin air.
So throwing more numbers, which we probably haven't got, is not going to fix it. So what can we do together to fix it? Are you able to increase your security, or do different things with your security, or do different things with your store or your centre?
Yes, that feeds into local intelligence in a way, doesn't it? So, I mean, how important is that in shaping those deployments?
Look, it's crucial, absolutely crucial. Look, it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking about. These are not your local shop in Bundara, like we're doing, or the Q shops, or the strip at Glenway, whatever. We're talking about international known shops that are in the city of Melbourne, which was highlighted when we had a couple of ram raids in Collins Street. Yeah. Now there was a couple of individuals that took it upon themselves who had scant regard for being caught. Clearly, because the times and things they were doing, and ram was really during our night shift, and the chance of being caught was very, very high. But it caused a whole heap of concern for workers, international businesses, asking what is the safety of city going on here. You know? So we worked heavily with them, heavily with the City of Melbourne to put things in place. So how did it occur? What are we doing? What are we missing? In relation to making sure that didn't occur again.
Yeah. And again, let's get into some of the weeds now about some of the types of crimes that we're seeing a little bit more of. So among them, as we've already touched on, youth crime, retail theft, knife crime. So retail first, to get into that, has become a huge issue for local traders in the city. What do you think's driving that?
Retail crime, there are a lot of drivers for it. And look, a lot of them are opportunistic. Yeah. A lot of them are to order. A lot of them to just because I've been dared for youth crime. There's also organised crime to go. Depends what you're talking about. Of course. Really. Yeah. So really, retail crime, it is a big thing. It's really trying to work with our key stakeholders in those ones and working out what we can do, and really. Days gone by when they used to run operations, a shoppy operation, which really just caught the people on that day. But we're really working with with Intel, really we're targeting people. Right, they've done it a couple of times. That's the person who we're after. Yeah. Let's target that person and work. And really, that's working way better than the old catching fish in a barrel kind of scenario. Yes. That didn't contribute to anything. It looked good on numbers. But really, we want to stop that overall kind of making it unattractive. Like, geez, I was arrested and I only went there twice and whatever. That they must know about me, or they've got intel on top of me. That we want to make it really hard. And with our big stores, that's what we do a lot with. Yeah, and knife crime's been a major public concern. How serious of an issue is that still in the CBD from a policing point of view? It's not in relation to it, and I'm not being flippant about that, but we're not getting the numbers we were years ago. But good. Look, days gone by, that knife crime has always been around since I've been a constable. So, but the availability of a sharp-edged weapon that looks like a machete or something similar, via eBays or for online purchasing, is so easier than it was years ago. So when that's when it's available and easier to purchase, like peer group pressure, we'll all get one and we'll all feel safe. But with the legislation that's come in relation to, and plus a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours for our members in relation to pad dog operations, scanning operations, we did with railway stations, we continue to do, has really dropped it to make sure that that's not an issue in the CBD of Melbourne. Yeah. I'm not saying you get rid of it, of course, but you minimise it to the maximum amount by doing the good work we've been doing over the last couple of years, not just by ourselves but with our stakeholders. Yeah, that's terrific. And I mean, you touched on it already before about avoiding the fish in the barrel approach to some of these issues, but what are police doing to disrupt some of these trends? And that's exactly what we're saying. We'll just set up a wanding scan at railway stations. People come off with intent to cause issue at a shopping centre or use it to rob someone. They're met there by 20, 30 police scanning and wanding everybody. And I remember we were getting out of COVID with the youth issue. We were getting a lot of machetes and knives and all that. Now we're not. So you go, well, that trend is working. if you're going to come to the city, you're going to get caught.
Yeah.
That your Moomba threats and all coming in, like we do, we scan all the time. The last couple of Moombas have been fantastic, really crime free, very, very, very crime free.
Excellent.
So which I talked about at the start was that we're trying to ensure that if you want to come into these events the City of Melbourne's putting on, it's an end-to-end experience. No point driving your car there, walking with your family, enjoying the Moomba, then getting threatened all the way back to your car, or you find your car stolen.
Yeah.
It's that, and that's our kind of responsibility and aspect there, is to make sure that you go home. So I want to come back again. That's what we're there for, to make it safe.
It's a good segue into the next component of the discussion here about a more layered safety model. And I raised this particular phase with the CSOs, the City of Melbourne, Community Safety Office, for anyone understanding what that acronym means, that the City of Melbourne has recently rolled out. I think the first tranche of them came in last year following a trial. So there was 11 community safety officers initially to help administer local bylaws. That number has now been, is mooted to double to 22 as part of the draft budget process now. So they're already becoming a visible part of the city's safety mix. And recent reporting suggests police have found them useful, particularly for bylaw and amenity issues that do not require sworn police time. There seem to be regular discussions between local police and the CSOs, which I'll obviously let you get into, with little issue of overlap, which was an original concern, I think, that was conveyed in the media about, the police powers versus CSOs and how they might intersect. So when CSOs were first introduced, there was a lot of debate about that duplication. But from your perspective, how is that relationship working in practice? It's
working really good. Look, it's a new tool.
Of course.
A new tool for the City of Melbourne, new tool for us to engage with. But we've got a very, very strong history with the City of Melbourne. We've got the Safe City camera program has been really running for 30 years and is expanding. So I just kind of see it as the next arm of that in relation to what City of Melbourne is putting in for their residents in relation to those bylaw issues that I don't think the public were expecting police to be doing blocked footpaths. That's not really our role. I think you would rather us go into a domestic violence and being a priority over those kind of things. So it was that kind of gap stuff that was kind of getting missed. But when you say that was getting missed, but it does kind of start a trend in areas. So have a look at what you mentioned, Elizabeth Street. So you have people just sitting on the footpath. Like some of them are begging, some of them need to be guided towards services, but some of them are illegally begging, but they're blocking access to people who are going into shops. It's an health and safety issue, and also people with ability issues, whether they be blind or incapacitated in walking and moving, or people blocking. That's not a policing issue. And they've stepped in to do those things, to move people on. But if they do need engagement to services, they're there as well, with the backing of the City of Melbourne.
Yeah.
If it escalates beyond that to a crime or threats of crime, then the police will step in.
Yeah.
And it's working well on that aspect. And it's always good. It's not the first time this has happened. I go back to Operation My City, which was, I think, originally called Kabul. And that's going for 30 years. It's a nighttime operation. Police have been running every Friday, Saturday night. And other salvos run with street teams. And the whole thing with that was that kind of intermediate kind of touch point with the public. Instead of just being the first person they speak to as a police officer, have someone else in between, which is not so seen in some people's eyes authoritarian, in relation to engagement. And the street teams, 25 years ago, started that kind of interaction, which has gone around the world, and having that, that softly touch with a non-authoritarian, but really pushing the right message to people.
Yeah.
And I see the CSOs in the same thing, a daytime version of that. Please, you're going to move on. Please, you can't be sitting there. And that's that kind of soft touch before police get involved. We shouldn't be getting there at the first point.
Yeah, and let's talk about their role. The role that they're playing in the crime aspect of their role, because yes, they're CSOs, they're for bylaws, but as we discussed in lead up to our chat today, Lord Mayor Nick Rees, in answer to a question in the budget, I think a couple of years ago, responded to a journalist's question by saying that they would have the powers to make citizens arrests, which obviously everyone has the power to make. So in its own right, it sounds like a silly response, but it's not, as you touched on, when they actually have the resources, they actually have handcuffs.
Yeah.
So they're empowered to make citizens arrests. I think is the important distinction.
That's exactly right. Anyone can make exactly the same arrest that they're making.
Yeah.
Except they're empowered to do it.
Yes.
And that's their role to do. Where, if you're yourself, you could look at something thinking, oh, I could step in here.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd be bold enough.
Or I could go get my cappuccino. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And there'd be no consequence of action of you making that decision, where they feel obligated and have got a responsibility to step forward and make sure that person's held accountable.
And so do you think CSOs have found their lane?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah.
I think they have. And as I said, it is a growing and it's evolving, but it's that, as I said, that's that touch point with the community. It's hard for Victoria Police Station when we're running from serious incident from the van to van to van to go, oh, stop, now we're just going to walk along the street of Lygon Street and for an hour, because it's not 5 minutes. It's not a 5 minutes walk along Lygon Street, or it's not a 5 minute walk along Swanson Street to meet all the shops. We haven't got the capacity to do that when we've got serious jobs we must be going to and serious things we've got to be overseeing. So that touch point with a authoritarian kind of person who represents the City of Melbourne for safety is a great for shops to see. And if there's issues that are raising there, they raise it with us as well. Yeah. That's kind of that information flow, which is great.
And let's get into some of the more sort of compassionate areas of policing, I suppose, with issues like homelessness, vulnerability, the council's new outreach response that it also announced as part of last week's draft budget. Yeah. So $2.3 million for new homelessness and outreach push to help rough sleepers and vulnerable people, including for the first time dedicated support for those facing complex mental health challenges. I mean, you've already touched on the multi-agency approach that you use with the Salvos and other agencies to deal with some of these matters. So some of the biggest concerns from the community do relate to homelessness, visible drug use, people in distress in public places though. So how do police approach that?
It is a difficult topic in relation to homelessness. Is really, there are people who are very much homeless and there are people who play on that as well. There is illegal begging as well in the streets. But over the last couple of years, and we've been working with the City of Melbourne, Co-Health, Salvation Army. We'd walk around in groups in relation to, speaking to these people and trying to put them in with services in relation to what support they needed. Begging's not the option. And I love Melburnians, Victorians, and the compassion for the average person is quite high in Melbourne. They were quite willing to give $20 to a person sitting there. Sometimes it's ill-directed kind of compassion, where I'd rather you put it towards services who supply food and all those aspects, because you might be giving it to the wrong people. And a lot of them play on it.
Yes.
And 90% of the people, this is from the City of Melbourne statistics, have accommodation and can go back. They set themselves up to look like we need some help, and then they'll play on it and make some good money. But so therefore, you've got to tread lightly in those areas, deal with those that are doing the wrong thing, but also make sure that people who come into the city who need services are put in the right area. And perception of safety, and what you were saying there about, it's funny, it's from where you see it. The people see them sitting out the front and they feel unsafe. Then if you ask the homeless why they come into the City of Melbourne, they see Melbourne as very safe. So from their perspective, why would I, if I'm homeless and I'm sitting out in some area out in the suburbs of Melbourne, I'd feel very vulnerable, but they feel safe when they come into the CBD. Well, okay, it's a great credit for Victoria Police and what we do in CBD, but then for residents, it doesn't look safe. So it's a balance of two.
Yeah, and let's touch on the drug use aspect, the visible signs of drug use on the street, which have been, I suppose, it sort of pairs between safety issue and also a mental health issue. So how much of what people describe as a safety issue is actually a health and mental health issue?
A lot. Yeah. So, like my members, you could walk out the front of Melbourne East right now and would have someone with mental health issues out the front. And it's something that's not going away, and it's how we engage with that. And it's really, we've engaged with our stakeholders in relation to We've got acute mental health issues happening. We've got people who've disengaged with their services from other areas, whether they're in the northern health hospital health system or the southern health system, and they've disengaged and have come to the city because they've meet up with peers. So you go, well, so how do we get them back engaged? How do we get the services to them to make sure they get the appropriate medication, support? But to the average tourist coming in, they'll see someone yelling, screaming, or two people yelling and screaming, and they're not doing anything. They're not causing a crime, but it doesn't look good.
Of course.
And that's I understand that, but it's for us to want to make sure that those people do get the services.
Yeah. Let's get into CCTV technology and prevention now. The draft budget again last week proposes to expand the Safe City camera network, which by all accounts has been a success according to the precinct programs around the city and local traders. So how important is CCTV in the way the CBD is now managed from your perspective?
Oh, it's one of those essential tools, and it has been around for a while. And I remember when they probably had only about 20 or 30 cameras, and it was seen at the time, and very controversial. We had to start up a committee of independent auditors. It was seen as Big Brother back then when the cameras were hopelessly bad quality. They were all on VHS tapes.
It's improved a lot.
So I don't know what they were worried about, because you couldn't see much with them when you got them, and there was oversight and audit. But I think now society's moved along, moved way past those expectations. Most people expect there to be CCTV in the city, and my city should be safe, and I expect the City of Melbourne to be maintaining that. And by expanding it is into areas that have developed. We're sitting here down in Docklands at the moment, and that's an expanding area every day. We've got a building site right beside you that will have residents in there, and another 4,000 residents, and then. So you go, well, okay, we've got to match up to what is growing of the CBD, the growing pains. And I think there's an expectation of the community that live in here, work, study, that the City of Melbourne is providing, and that it is a wonderful tool. The City of Melbourne manages it very well. It gives a great oversight and can pick problems before they become problems.
Yeah, I mean, how important is that information sharing from between the council and police? I mean, particularly when we talk about other public amenity issues and crimes like graffiti.
Oh, it is crucial in relation to it, and I know they've changed a couple of the legislations of the use of the cameras really to just to more get lower level stuff as well, like your graffiti, like your public criminal damage, willful damages that are happening around the CBD. They have prevented that much crime in the CBD and assisted us. They have direct access to our radio, and they'll say, look, we've got something happening here, it's happening right now, and we can attend to it. And that we've stopped so many incidences, serious ones, over the years. Yeah,
and I think it's worth touching on quickly as well the presence of protests in Melbourne CBD in recent years, because some people have described it as the new protest capital, which is not a moniker that the city necessarily wants, but there's been an interesting debate, I suppose, between the human rights aspect and democratic rights of being able to protest, but the regularity, I think, particularly of the Free Palestine protests every week, and that balancing residential and city amenity, and how those two sort of intersect. So Melbourne has been increasingly labelled in these terms. I mean, how does that affect central city policing from your end?
It's labour intensive.
Yeah.
And it is monotonous. As I say, it has been over the last, and I'm not here to the pros and cons of why the people are protesting. That's not here. The actual protest itself, it goes on forever, and sometimes I think, well, is the white noise becoming white noise? Is it doing what you wanted it to be? And I've seen protests change over the years. I remember when I first joined doing a lot of the BLF and CFMEU aspects, and they used to be fairly physical, real physical for fights at the front of Parliament House. But the message they were pushing was lost in whatever they were trying to push. And now you look at those builders, ETU, all those ones, and now they're probably the best people to work with in demonstrations, because they don't want their message missed when they're doing the protest. So you go, well, how do these protests impact on the CBD? it's a balancing act. I can see the rights of what the protest, but it's becoming like BAU at the moment. So it is. We're working with the council to give other areas of a CBD that can be utilised for these kind of for discussions that can hold thousands of people, and so we're working with them. But everyone loves standing outside Parliament House.
Yes.
And everyone loves standing in Fed Square or something similar. So, and loves walking down Swanson Street.
So have these large demonstrations changed the way you plan policing in the CBD?
No, not really. Well, look, we've been doing demonstrations for a long time. So we pretty much it's our bread and butter. It's all the time. So it does impact on what we can support other things with, because we're rostering for these demos all the time.
And how do you respond to businesses and residents who constantly say, we've had enough?
I don't blame them, and I understand. Sean, I get phone calls or emails Mondays after a demonstration all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas and I get it. People want to vent, and I'm probably the closest thing other than probably Nick Rees. They can they can send an email to. I'm not happy about these demos. I wasn't told about this one. I get that, and I understand that fully. When I say jocularly there, but I do understand people's pain. I do understand people live in the CBD. They live down Little Bourke Street. They can't get their car in. They can't get their car out. They book to have a party, or their friends come around to visit them in the CBD, and that's impacted again and again and again. Or the restaurant who is open and he struggled last week and there's another big demo, and businesses are going backward because of that impact. And I fully understand that. We try our very best for our members when we're trying to give access to anyone who lives in the CBD as best we can. We're very flexible, and I say, we'll get you in. We'll try and get you in. We'll get you around the back of this demo, and because we understand the pain that people are going through.
Yeah. As we move towards wrapping up the conversation now, I think it's worth re-emphasising who the stakeholders are in the city who help make the city a safer place. So it's interlaced the conversation up until this point, but obviously Victoria Police, needless to say, but City of Melbourne, CSOs, outreach teams, trader and resident groups, homelessness and health services like CoHealth, transport agencies, major institutions. So worth emphasising from your point of view, if you want to give individual shout outs to these people as well, of course. But when safety is working well in the city, I mean, who is involved?
I'll give a big shout out to the licensees of the City of Melbourne. There is about 1,600 licensed premises in the CBD. Yeah. So that's a lot of licensed venues. And I've said this before, and if you had asked, and I used to do a bit with licensed premises in the unit that used to kind of target them or police them, and now I'm overseen as a licensing inspector. And where we've come from and where we are now, if you told a younger Dale back then that there would be 1,600 licensed venues, and this is back when there was just King Street and maybe the top of Burke and a sprinkling of other things throughout the CBD, and we thought we were struggling with violence, and it was violence back then. It was serious violence. That now in 2026, there's 1,600 licensed venues, down alleyways, up on rooftops, down underneath in bars, big ones, small ones, you name it, gin ones, whiskey ones, you know, but you can walk from Spring Street to Spencer Street, and you probably wouldn't make it if you had a drink at every venue along the way. So, and I would have said as a young one, my God, that the crime must be out of control. Yeah. It is not. It is one of the months, and people come from interstate and overseas. I know definitely come from interstate to come to the bars, restaurants, rooftop bars that Melbourne has here. So one of the biggest ones was the licensees of Melbourne becoming really professional. The Licensees Forum, the City of Melbourne Helps, and police have been kind of the chair of that, where I am at the moment. And so you go, that's one industry that has really helped drive that safety of Melbourne. Yeah. And so when you look at what industries can do, it's fantastic. And really the benefit, it was back, let's go back 30 years, it was get some money, get out of the venue, where it's investment in venues now. It's investment long term. These investments, we're going to have a bespoke kind of whiskey thing. We're going to do this, and they're really there for the right reasons. And some really good operators coming through really good operators who've been around for a long time, who have set the agenda and made sure that they're really concerned about going forward in the City of Melbourne, making sure that it is a safe place. Because they can see the benefits. You make it safe to come here at night and partake in all those venues, that you'll get repeat business. Repeat business. So that's just one of a few of our stakeholders who really do a fantastic job that you don't see.
Yeah, and probably don't get a shout out often enough.
No, they don't. But they are the ones that drive that safety aspect from the nighttime thing. The City Council has done great things. Remember, from councillor to councillor to Lord Mayor to Lord Mayor, has improved, and they adopt, or they get hand past the issues from the one before. I get that, and Elizabeth Street's not something new.
Yes.
So, and there's only so much budget, but we're looking at things that where just cleanliness of the city, and a big shout out to all the cleaners of the City of Melbourne. I see them every morning, 5 o'clock, spraying down
street cleaning
teams. Do a fantastic work, and we will say to our members, "Oh my God, it's just disgusting down there," because environment dictates behaviour, and the City of Melbourne go right, and working with them, they change the whole rubbish contract to be 24 hours, not just that what you see, hoping at 9 o'clock we turn the lights off and hope in the morning it's okay. It's 24 hours now, and really some great work been done there to present the city in its best light all the time. So then the residents groups and also the traders associations are crucial in relation to us getting the information backwards and forwards. What's causing you issues, what's causing you pain, please let us know. And the communication is fantastic. It's first rate, and I thank them for their efforts. But it is a two-way street, getting the job done in the CBD. Yeah,
and looking ahead, I mean, Melbourne already is a safe city, but with a view to making an even safer one, what keeps you confident and hopeful about Melbourne as a safe city? I mean, you might have already touched on it there with that multi-agency approach and networking.
Yeah, it is. The people you work with, you get really fired up for people's passion in relation to even the councillor. A couple of councillors are very passionate about the safety of the city, and I get it. And sometimes you go, well, that's a bit unrealistic, but I love the place where we're going. So for people who are listening to this, or for a resident, the people are really, really invested in making sure this is as safe as we can be in Melbourne. It's not always going to be safe, but let's make it as safe as we can. And what can we do, in relation to working together? So that excites me when I see my people coming through, and I see my constables and my sergeants and my managers and my supervisors. They are really invested in relation to. So you're getting a wonderful prolonged policing in the next 5 to 10 years of people who are passionate about the CBD and care for it in a way that they want to make sure that people who come in here, who live here, who study here, who work here, can do it in the safest possible way.
Dale, thanks for joining us on the Future Melbourne podcast today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation.